This will be the most important rankings list we put out all season. Week 1 of the playoffs. I really hope that you are not having to get to the very bottom end of this list when submitting your starting lineup, but let's run through it. Starting off tier 1, Christian McCaffrey got you here, and CMC is going to bring it home for you. Going up against Arizona, it's a beautiful matchup. The Niners have an implied team total of 31 points. I mean, if we're looking at the underdog pick and what you're going to have with Christian McCaffrey, the expectations should legitimately be that this guy goes out there and this guy drops 25 points minimum for you. Really can feel safe starting. I mean, our next guy, this is going to be really aggressive here. Y'all know typically I play it safe with these rankings. Typically we go with the guys that we have a large sample of, blah, blah, blah. Well, we have a large sample of Kyren Williams at this point. Not only do we have that large sample, but at the same time, they're going up against Washington. The Rams offense has been phenomenal as of late. And if you're looking at what Vegas is saying, they are giving the Rams a 28.5 point implied team total. The Rams, according to Vegas Sportsbooks this week, are supposed to be the second best or third best offense in the NFL. Kyren Williams is seeing every single snap. It is a beautiful matchup. And yeah, we will have Kyren here as our second running back. Now, going over to our third guy, we will have Alvin Kamara. Kamara just very safe in terms of consistently going out there and getting targeted out of the backfield. I mean, his underdog pick him 65.5 rushing yards. Obviously, you're not starting him based off his rushing involvement. This is for a full PPR format where those receptions matter so damn much. Now, Bijan at 4 also has a beautiful matchup going up against the Carolina Panthers. You only have a 19.5 point implied team total for the Atlanta Falcons here. But I mean, if you're looking at what the game environment should be, we should most likely see the Panthers continue to struggle to move the ball down the field. The Atlanta Falcons be able to run the ball in the second half, and the Carolina Panthers are top 3 in the NFL in total points allowed to opposing running backs so far this season. So yeah, I'm all in starting Bijan Robinson. Right now he's at 69.5 rushing yards for his underdog pick'em. Dropping down to our next tier, we are going to be going with Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs, great matchup going up against the Denver Broncos and super safe guy to start just every single week. You know what? We will have him behind Rachaad White because we can say White's maybe a little bit safer, right? Well, I do think that Gibbs is in a better offense and Gibbs will most likely have more touchdown upside. Rachaad White has been scoring touchdowns like a madman, and this is someone that has just as much, if not a larger role as a receiver out of his backfield compared to what you are going to get from Gibbs here. So yeah, let's fire up Rachaad White against Green Bay here at 5. And then the last guy in this tier will be Travis Etienne. Now y'all know Etienne was my third most drafted running back this year in draft. So I promise you, I'm going to be rooting for Travis Etienne an insane amount this week. I really need Etienne in a lot of spots to go out there and crush it for us. The issue is it's going to be a very tough matchup going up against the Baltimore Ravens. You only have a 20.5 point implied team total here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So while I love Etienne, while I think that maybe for the Fantasy Football Championship the week before, this is someone that can go out there and dominate for you, I'm going to be a little bit hesitant this week to rank him as that elite RB1 with the tough matchup against Baltimore. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we will go with Tony Pollard at 8. Now, it's a tough matchup on the surface. You have a 24 point implied team total for this Dallas Cowboys offense. And consistently, Pollard is in one of the best offenses in the NFL and at the same time, drawing target volume out of this backfield. So while I did not draft this guy, while y'all made me feel so crappy to say buy low, buy low, buy low earlier in the year, I stand by it. If you're a running back that has that receiving role, a red zone role, and you're in one of the best offenses in the NFL, this is someone that you have to consistently go out there and start every single week, regardless of how ugly it gets. And Breece Hall, I mean, we called him must-start guy this past week. Same thing here. You're starting Breece Hall every single week. Very tough matchup going up against Miami, where we can assume that Miami probably has a very large lead. It's going to depend on what we have with the Tyreek Hill injury, I think, and we will update y'all with that tomorrow. But you're going up against the Dolphins, so we can say, oh, okay, well, you are going to be having a ton of receiving volume in the second half, and that's been the main thing you've had from Breece Hall as of late. This is a running back that's consistently seeing 8 to 9 targets out of the backfield, and then obviously, based off his talent profile, he does have that big play appeal. David Montgomery will be our next guy in here at 10. Great matchup against Denver, 25.5 point implied team total. Start him every single week. Start Gibbs every single week. Running behind an elite offensive line. I am expecting a Detroit Lions bounce back game. Then we're going to go Isaiah Pacheco at 11. Tough matchup going up against the Pats. And obviously, we are expecting Pacheco is going to go in this instance. If you have no Isaiah Pacheco, what we did see this past week, you are going to get a split backfield here where you are going to have about 50% of the snaps going to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 50% of the snaps going to McKinnon. Clyde Edwards-Helaire actually had a larger workload this past week, but McKinnon was the guy that came away with more points. He just looked better with the ball in his hands. The reality of the situation, probably shouldn't start any running back here not named Pacheco, but we will rank Pacheco as if he's good to go. Devon Achane will be our next guy at 12. Now, right now, I am recording this at the very beginning of the Dolphins game. Just to let you know, Tyreek Hill just went down. I'm assuming that we will have Tyreek Hill next week. If you have no Tyreek, then this offense will struggle just a bit. It's a tough matchup going up against the Jets. This will be something that we need to continue to go through and monitor, of course. And that I do want to see what we have with the split of Achane and Mostert in the second half. So we may end up having to update these rankings later in the week, and I will do that in the flex rankings for you on Friday. So just make sure you are subscribed. But I mean, I would say as a general rule of thumb, based off how good this offense has been all season, I probably want to continue to start both Miami backs every single week, just like the Detroit guys. Now, going over to what we have with Austin Eckler. So running back that did see the majority of the work out of the backfield this past week for the Chargers. We had reports going into the week saying that they were going to split the backfield. That just turned out not to be true. But it's a pretty bad spot with no Justin Herbert, where right now you have an implied team total of 15.5 points here for the Los Angeles Chargers. So it's true that Eckler should have the majority of the receiving work in this backfield. And it's true that he still has the role that he did at the beginning of the season. But at the same time, it is a very difficult spot if the offense is going to be significantly worse than they were previously. And you will have less touchdown upside overall. Now, I will say, on Underdog, they just put out Austin Eckler's special pick'em for Thursday, more than less than half a total yard. I am pretty confident that Eckler is going to get at least 1 yard on Thursday. So if you want to tail us on that, you can find that link in the description in the comment section. Underdog Fantasy, promo code FLOCK, going to get you a 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers, and that Austin Eckler special pick'em more than less than half a total yard. Now, jumping down to our next tier, we're going to go Saquon Barkley. With Barkley, still expecting this to be a bad Giants offense. Going up against New Orleans, it's kind of whatever. Barkley will have a role as a receiver. Barkley's going to have the red zone role as well, so he's going to have some rushing touchdowns upside. But, I mean, it's still a bad offense that I'm going to have a hard time getting excited about. Zach Moss doesn't have the best matchup going up against Pittsburgh. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott just played a great game last Thursday. Here it should be a lower scoring contest overall, but Zach Moss is going to continue to have every single snap out of his backfield. So Zach Moss continues to be someone that you have to start. Really think that he is similar to Saquon Barkley in a way in that they're both running backs seeing every snap, every touch. But for one reason or another, in the case of Barkley, it's a bad offense. In the case of Moss, I don't think he's super talented, at least compared to someone like Saquon Barkley. Should be a little bit hesitant. And then Joe Mixon in an offense that's a lot better than I have been expecting here with Jake Browning. I understand, yes, that Chase Brown has flashed, and I know a lot of people are excited about Chase Brown from a dynasty perspective. I'm actually going to be talking about Chase Brown in a dynasty video later this week. Of course, that's not going to be on this channel. I'm not going to bother you all with dynasty content on this channel, but if you do play dynasty or play in a keeper league or are interested in either, you can find that on the Dynasty Football Flock YouTube channel. Just search it on YouTube. You should pop up. But yeah, I'm not worried about Chase Brown in the short term for Joe Mixon. I think Mixon's still going to be the 3-down back here. Pretty respectable implied team total, 21 points going up against Minnesota. They are favored in this game. They can't be running the ball in the second half. Going to be crazy. They win 3 games straight with no Burrow. Now we'll go Mostert at 17. I want to reiterate, we are recording this right before halftime of the Dolphins game. So there is a chance that we are going to have to flip Mostert and Achane in these rankings. But assuming that we have Tyreek Hill good to go, I'm going to say this next week against the Jets, similar to the Lions spot, we are most likely wanting to have to start both Mostert and Achane based off what we had over the larger sample. Now, of course, if they struggle this week in a weird game against the Tennessee Titans, then maybe you go through and maybe you take that. Start both these guys. They've been great all season. It's a phenomenal offense. Now, Derrick Henry will be our next guy going up against the Texans. Derrick Henry may actually move up these rankings as well. I think CJ Stroud's availability is actually going to matter a ton here, and that we've seen Derrick Henry in competitive games be fine. We've seen Derrick Henry actually score a lot in competitive contests. But at the same time, I mean, in games where they get blown out, I mean, you're not really super happy about what you have from Derrick Henry. So if you have CJ Stroud playing, this is about where we would rank him. If CJ Stroud were to miss and the Tennessee Titans are favored in that game, then Henry could move up to the top of this tier. DeAndre Swift will be our last running back. While I understand, yeah, DeAndre Swift has been very bad, I'm still going to be starting him. He's still part of a great offense. You have a 25-point team total here for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a matchup where they are favored heavily going up against Seattle. So I actually like the idea of just going through and starting DeAndre Swift. They've struggled over the past 2 weeks, but it's been against Dallas. It's been against San Fran and games where they just got absolutely blown out. Now, Javonte will lead off our next tier, with Javonte finally scored that rushing touchdown we've been talking about this past week. The volume's been there. The thing is, you are now seeing both Samaje Perine and Jaleel begin to see snaps and touches in this backfield yet again. So it's a little bit frustrating. If this does go back to being a three-man running back by committee, we need to be a little more hesitant. Ezekiel Elliott will be our next guy at 21. With Zeke, obviously is going to see every single touch out of this backfield, and that makes him the only guy in New England that you would even consider starting. But you have a 13.5 point implied team total here going up against the Chiefs. It's a tough matchup. The Chiefs are pissed. I'm sure the Chiefs are going to go out there and play one hell of a football game this next Sunday. He is very similar to Saquon Barkley in that he's in a very bad offense, but just going to have a massive workload. The difference is Zeke at this point of his NFL career doesn't have that same type of juice. Now I have Ezekiel Elliott in a $1,000 league that just got to the fantasy football playoffs. So I'm really hoping that Zeke does crush it and really exceeds these expectations. But for now, this is where I'm going to have him. James Cook will be our next guy. Tough matchup going up against Dallas. We just saw DeAndre Swift do nothing. But with James Cook, what's actually very interesting in this Dallas game is you actually have the Buffalo Bills favored over the Dallas Cowboys for now. Wild to see this. Obviously, the spread was only 1.5 points against the Chiefs, and the Bills went out there and won that game straight up. So it's interesting to see how this game's being projected out. But, I mean, nonetheless, if you have James Cook as a running back that's going to be involved as a receiver and at the same time in one of the best offenses in the NFL, even if it's a tough matchup, I think you can start him. Kenneth Walker will be our next guy at 23. With Kenneth Walker, very difficult to rank him. He's been horrendous over the past few games, but I mean, the second to last game he played was the one he got injured in this past week. Very tough matchup against the Niners where he wasn't even 100%. He was a game time decision. It's a tough matchup against Philly as well, but you do have a 22-point implied team total, which is much higher than what you've had, say, this past week where they were at like 16.5 going up against the Niners. But really, Kenneth Walker in a full BBR format, you shouldn't be super excited about based off the fact that he's not really going to be involved as a receiver. Brian Robinson will be our next guy at 24. Now, Brian Robinson did practice on Monday. This is going to be something that we need to continue to monitor. They're going up against the Rams. Right now, this is actually projecting out to be a pretty high-scoring game where you have, I want to say, like 48, 49 point total here. So, I mean, I think that you can start multiple pieces in this game and feel just fine about it. Chuba Hubbard will be our next guy. If you're looking at Chuba Hubbard, he is now fully taken over as the bell cow back. Now, similar to someone else in this tier in Ezekiel Elliott, Chuba Hubbard may be the bell cow back, while at the same time, we can say he's in one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and he's not a super talented running back either. So I'll be a little bit hesitant when it comes to going out there and ranking Chuba Hubbard as like a top 12 option by any means, but definitely someone that is viable. I'm really hoping you don't have to start anybody this low, considering we have nobody on bye, and at the same time, obviously, it is the fantasy football playoffs where things matter so damn much. James Conner will be our next guy at 27. If you're looking at Conner, really tough matchup going up against the Niners. Most weeks we will have James Conner ranked significantly ahead of this. It's just more so, I really don't know how we feel about the matchup. We'll go Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren directly afterwards. I mean, this offense has been better since Matt Canada has been let go, but I think you want to see Kenny Pickett under center here for this team over Mitchell Trubisky, even if Pickett's not great, just so this offense has a chance to move the ball down the field. And then guys that will have a role that I'm not super excited to get in the starting lineup include like Jerome Ford, Devin Singletary, Zach Charbonnet, and Keaton Mitchell. Like if you're playing in a deeper dynasty league, then sure, you can go out there and look at these names. If you're in a DFS style contest, you need someone at low ownership that maybe could go out there and score a couple random touchdowns, then maybe you look at this group of guys. But the reality of the situation is if you're playing in the fantasy football playoffs in a shallower format, I'm really hoping that you're not having to start anybody here. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging out with us in this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with us all season. I'm wishing you the best of luck. I hope you go out there and crush it for the fantasy football playoffs. I do want to reiterate, I'm going to stop posting here as much now that obviously nobody can make trades anymore. We're going to be ramping back up the Dynasty channel. That's where I'm going to be posting every single day through the course of the offseason. I love Dynasty Fantasy Football. I'm sure y'all know that's my favorite way to play. And of course, if you don't play Dynasty, don't worry about it. You're not going to see any posts on this channel. They're all going to be on the Dynasty Football Flock channel. If you are interested in that, you can look up Dynasty Football Flock on YouTube. I'm sure it'll be the first result. If not, no worries. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day and really hope we get to see you on the live stream later tonight.